the good fights, for introducing us tonight, for being an all-time champ. John Doe, who opened up the show. I didn't say it, he did, but I like this slogan. John Doe for Beto. Yes, I love it. Absolute dream of mine to meet the guy. Grew up listening to his records. Love the fact that he's a Texan and registered to vote in the state of Texas, and will be joining us in winning this election on the 6th of November. John Doe, thank you. Huge fan. Jamila, thank you for getting us started. If you hang out, I'll be brief, but Superfonicos are joining after this. They're gonna rock the house. You're gonna wanna be here for them. We're grateful to you all for helping us out. I gotta tell you, this is nuts to be in emos. Long time ago, you know, inspired by X and the great stuff that John Doe was doing, the Dead Boys in Texas, great punk rock bands all over the country and the world who opened up my eyes and my ears. And for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't have to just take what was being given. That there were people my own age who played guitar just as badly as I did, who were making their own records, starting their own labels, booking their own tours, singing their own songs. They were just people connecting with people. No corporations, no major labels, no one planning this out for you. You were just gonna do it yourself and kind of following their lead. We started to write our own songs, formed our own band, Mike Stevens, Arlo Clar, Cedric Bixler Zavala, myself, in the back of a Plymouth satellite station wagon, touring the country. In that station wagon were these 4 really smelly guys by the end of the tour. Cedric's drum kit, our guitar amps, our guitars, 1 change of clothes per band member for the month that we were gonna be on the road. And one of our first stops was here. Now this is like almost 25 years ago now, 23, 24 years ago. Was here, not here emos, was here Austin. And when we came to Austin, I remember we parked right by the old emos. And of course, we were not gonna play at the old emos. We couldn't even get in. We like kind of looked through the fence. We were playing at the Pink Flamingo. I don't know if anybody's been there. And we played our hearts out to the 6 people at the Pink Flamingo who apparently had been there since the night before. They just happened to be there. We were just playing to whoever was already in the place. So, man, this place holds so many memories for so many great bands, so much great music, so much great art, so many great connections are made right here. And in some way, what we have all decided to do in this campaign, person to person, human to human, no corporations, no special interests, no political action committees, all people, all the time. No posters, no focus groups, no DNC, no one telling us the song that we're gonna sing, no one telling us the message that we're gonna carry, no one changing the courage of our convictions. This feels so good. It feels like the right thing to be doing at the most important time in our lifetimes, and perhaps the lifetime of this country. And whatever you're doing here in Austin, whatever you're sharing with your families all across the state of Texas, please keep doing it because it seems to be working. Last week they released a poll and it says we're 2 points down from the sitting junior U.S. Senator with more than 80 days to go to make up that time and that ground. And without taking a dime from PACs, no help from corporations or special interests, to the $4 million that the junior senator raised in the last 3 months, and he's used to try to make us afraid of one another, use fear as a tactic to divide us and keep people down, instead of describing our ambitions and our goals and the work that we each commit ourselves to doing to achieve them. That $4 million, that cynical way of playing politics in this country right now. To that, without a dime from PACs, you raised $10.4 million to make sure that we can reach everyone, everywhere, in every single county. We've been on the road now for more than a year and a half. When we first started out, when I first sat down and met with Gina, I was literally on my own, in my own car, driving from county to county, just trying to see if folks felt the same way that Amy and I felt about our kids, about Ulysses and Molly and Henry, about their future, the question we knew they were going to ask sooner than later. When all this shit was going on in the country, the building of walls, the banning of Muslims, the press as the enemy of the people, when they were tearing little kids literally from the breast of their mother after surviving 2,000 miles on foot, if lucky, on top of a train, coming to this country of refugees and asylum seekers and immigrants seeking salvation and safety, as have countless generations before them. When there was pettiness and paranoia, hatred and racism in the land, what did you all do? How did you account for yourself? And we said, listen, we cannot do anything but what we're going to do right now. We're going to drive to every single county in Texas. Listen to everyone. You cannot be too Republican. You can't be too Democrat. You can't be too independent. You can't be too much of a non-voter. For us to invite you into this campaign and do what's necessary for this state and for our country at this critical moment. We're going to get our back on track. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to make ourselves proud of one another. And we will allow no small thing, geography, distance, party, nothing to stand in our way or keep us apart. I remember one of the first times I was in Austin, staying at Jay and Chrissy's house, and was going to drive to Dallas the next day, again on my own, and I Google mapped it the night before. And apparently on Google Maps at 1 a.m., the drive from Austin to Dallas is like 2.5 hours. When I got in the car the next morning at 8 a.m., it was 3.5 hours. So rushed out, went to a gas station to fill up, went inside to grab a cup of coffee and a banana for breakfast, got back in the car, pulled out, and there was this giant hose following me out of the gas station. And I'd left the nozzle in the gas tank. And so sheepishly, I put the car in park, walked out, pulled the nozzle out, not realizing the trigger was still locked and gas is just splashing all over the car and my suit. And so for the next 2 hours, I'm screaming down the highway with all 4 windows rolled down, airing out this suit so I don't stink of gasoline. But showing up there in Dallas after I'd been in Austin, but going to places like Lubbock, Texas, where they asked me if I had read the map wrong. They said, listen, this isn't a place where you're gonna find Democrats. But I did. I found all 23 of them. And we got together. And we had a great conversation and a great meeting. But we also met with Republicans as well, with the cotton growers, with the Chamber of Commerce. We met with everyone. We never asked party affiliation. Don't want to know what our differences are. What do we want to do in common? What's the big stuff that we're only going to be able to do if we do it together? We talked about things like what if we got behind our world-class public school teachers, paid them a living wage, made sure that they could focus on the kids in front of them, ensured that they didn't have to teach to a high-stakes, high-pressure, standardized test, focused on those kids, on the books that they wanted to share with them. I've told some of you, the only reason we named our firstborn Ulysses is we didn't have the guts to name him Odysseus. I want to make sure that at El Paso High, where they're reading the abridged version of the Odyssey today, that they read the full book because they don't have to set aside 2.5 weeks for standardized test prep. That we judge that teacher by the way that he and she connect with the students in that classroom, unlock that lifelong love of learning, overcome the challenges that so many of those kids, especially now at this moment, face. Kids who haven't had a square meal, or if they get the free and reduced breakfast and lunch, may not have a dinner waiting for them at home. Kids who in the least insured state in the country might not be able to see a therapist or a counselor or a social worker or get that surgery or medication that they need to lead a better life or just to live at all. Kids in this state who fear deportation back to a country they have never known. 200,000 dreamers call Texas home. They're in our classrooms, but they're also teaching our kids. They're serving tonight in Afghanistan and Iraq, all over the world. What if we rewarded that sacrifice made by those teachers, the magic that they make happen in that classroom, by not only paying them a living wage, not only allowing them to focus on the child instead of that standardized test? What if, in addition, además, we said you will never have to fear somebody walking into that classroom with a military weapon to kill those kids that you've already sacrificed so much for? Because this state has decided, with our proud, long, rich tradition of gun ownership, responsible, safe gun ownership for hunting, for self-protection, for collecting, for sport, for whatever, as long as you do it safely, that not only are we going to ensure that there are universal background checks, all loopholes, including the boyfriend loophole, closed, but in addition, we're going to make sure that those weapons that were first engineered and designed and sold to the United States military for the sole purpose of killing people as effectively, as efficiently, and as great a number as possible, that those weapons stay on the battlefield and are no longer sold into our communities, don't end up in our schools, don't have to worry about them at concerts like this one, in our churches, in our public spaces. We can and we should lead on that. In a state where the largest provider of mental health care services today is the county jail system in the state of Texas today, where people routinely tell me about a family member who has schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, who gets arrested on purpose because that's the only place that they can be better, that they're guaranteed the care that they are in desperate need of, from a condition that they're suffering from that may take their lives if they're not helped. It costs you $60 a day, every single day that someone's locked up for health care that they cannot get otherwise. And when they're locked up, so is their potential, their ability to raise their family, their ability to finish their education, work a job, pay taxes, shoulder their fair share of the burden, their ability to start a business, to play in a rock and roll band, to create art that's going to blow our minds if we just give them the chance to be who they're supposed to be in their lives. $60 a day. And for a fraction of that cost, for under $15 a day, we can provide outpatient mental health care services for those who need it. So when they say that universal, guaranteed, high quality health care for every child, for every woman, for every man is an expensive proposition, you tell them it's a hell of a lot less expensive than the way that we pay and fail to pay for healthcare in this state and in this nation today. Texas, and we will never see it coming from us, as the least insured state, should be the state that leads the way on this issue, and not just because it's great for those who have gone far too long without. It's great for the rest of us who will benefit from their genius, their potential, their ability to contribute to their maximum capacity. And let's also acknowledge this. At the same time that we are here, enjoying our freedom, enjoying one another, at the same time that we acknowledge that there are kids in that tent camp in Tornillo who are waiting to see their parents, let's also acknowledge that we're locking up our fellow Americans in such a way that we produce the largest prison population on the face of the planet. That prison population is disproportionately comprised of people of color. That we have a school to prison pipeline that begins in this country in kindergarten, where a 5-year-old child, depending on their race or ethnicity, will be 4 to 5 times more likely to be suspended or expelled. A war on drugs in this country that has become a war on people, and some people over other people. A new Jim Crow that has stripped people of their rights in this community, in this state, in this country. We are 49th in the country in voter turnout, and that did not happen by mistake or accident. It is 100% by design and on purpose. If we make the decision that we're going to invest in one another, that we're going to begin public education at pre-K full day for every child, so every one of them starts at the same starting line. If we add to that teachers who understand their classes, because we've invested in those teachers, and better yet, teachers who look like the kids in their classes that they're teaching. If we stop a war on drugs, end the prohibition on marijuana, expunge the records of everyone arrested for marijuana, something that's legal in 29 states in this country, we're going to free so many people to do so much good for themselves, for their families, for one another, for all of us. Whatever it is that we want to do, whether it's taking the lead on immigration laws that are written in our own image, that reflect our experience and who we are, whether it's getting behind these public school teachers who have this opportunity to continue to make us the greatest country on the face of the planet, if it's leading on universal health care, if it's ensuring that criminal justice reform begins in Texas and ensures that there is justice for all of these things are possible if we decide that we're going to make them so. If we decide that we're going to rely on one another, not corporations and special interests, at a time of unprecedented wealth and power and privilege concentrated in the hands of so few, at a moment where corporations increasingly call the tune and the shots in Congress, in the elections that are fought, in the legislation that is passed, this is a moment for you to pick a side. You're either with corporations or you're with people. You're either with special interests or you're with people. You're either with the political action committees or you're with people. And I want to be with people every single time. The people of Texas. And I want us to win this. I want us to win this in the right way. Know this. What you're doing right now, coming together, making this commitment to your fellow Texans, to your fellow Americans, deciding that we will not be organized against anyone or anything or any other political party, that we are here for this country that we love so much, that we're going to do this together, is not just the right way to win this election. It's the right way to get this country back and make sure that our democracy responds to us. The very high expectations that we are setting for one another for any issue that I've raised tonight or another one that brought you here. You know full well this planet warms another 2 degrees Celsius. We lose it forever. Our ability to grow our own food and fiber in West and Panhandle and North Texas. Our ability to live in Rockport and Port Aransas and Houston and Nome and Beaumont and Port Arthur. All of that is compromised and undermined if we do not make the right decisions today. We've got to make sure that we continue to hold one another accountable. We've got to make sure that in the time left to us in this election that will be decided on the 6th of November, that we do everything within our power to win it. And that means you've got to be willing to knock on doors. You've got to be willing to make phone calls. And I gotta tell you, if like me, you're now used to engaging with people on your cell phone, if like me, you don't have to have an inconvenient, uncomfortable conversation if you don't want to, if like me, perhaps in your life you have found yourself surrounded by people who think the same way that you do, have come to the same conclusions on the same issues that you care about, if you will take the time to knock on one of your neighbor's door, if you'll take the time to pick up the phone and call one of your fellow Texans, that human-to-human connection will be more profound, more powerful than any TV ad that we could run, any radio spot you might miss on your drive home from work. It will invite the people who can decide the future and the fortune and the fate of this state and this country for this generation and every generation that follows. Are you with me on this? Are you willing to do the work? Do you want to win this election? I want to do this with you. I am so grateful that you came out here today. Thank you for the support. Thank you for staying after it. I'll see you on the trail. I love you, Austin. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Austin.